This final lesson is going to talk about solving system of equations by another matrix method known as reduced row echelon form is what we try to get our matrix into. And so as you see here, we've got an augmented matrix, and you notice that we have the identity matrix on one side and then this column matrix on the other side. And essentially what we have done is we've said, okay, our x is equal to -4. Our y is equal to 6, our z is equal to 20, and in this case we'll assume the next one is w is equal to -12. Again, this is what is known as reduced row echelon form, or RREF for short. That's what your calculator will have it listed as. So let's real quick look at a 2x2 and try to do it by hand. Again, we're going to pull off our coefficients on x to make our first matrix. So we've got a 3, a -1, a -4, and a 2, and then we're going to augment that with b, which is 3, -2. So now instead of our A matrix, which was the separate 3, -1, -4, 2, and our B matrix, which was the 3, -2, we're going to augment those matrices and put them together. And essentially, again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our identity matrix over here. So first things first, one of the easier things to do might be to get the 1 here. I'm going to move this over a little bit so we have a little bit more room. So in this case, I am going to do things a little bit out of order, but I'm going to add the first 2 rows and put them in row 1. So row 1 plus row 2, and I'm going to put them in row 1. So if we do that, we end up with a -1, a 1, and a 1. So 3 plus -1 is 1, -1 plus 2 is 1, and 3 plus -2 is 1. Again, the second row we are not going to do anything with there. Then I'm going to multiply through that first row by -1, so negative row 1, and that will give us our 1, -1, and -1. Still have our -4, 2, and -2. So that gives us our 1 in our first spot. If we're trying to get a 0 here now, we would just multiply the first row by 4 and add it to the second row, and we'll put that in row 2. Our first row is not going to change, we'll just write it down. Our second row, -4 plus 4 is going to be 0. 2 plus -4 is going to be -2, and -2 minus 4 is going to be -6. So we've got our 1 and our 0 here. Now we need to get a 1 here, so I'm going to just divide by -2. So R2, I'm going to divide by -2. And that will give us our first row is not going to change. Second row is going to be 0, 1, and 3. And then the last thing we need to do is get this to be a 0, which is pretty easy. We just add the 2 rows together and replace row 2. So we end up with our first row is going to be 1 plus 0 is 1, -1 plus 1 is 0, and -1 plus 3 is 2. Second row is going to be 0, 1, and 3. So we've done this again by hand. It wasn't too much work. And what we end up with is x equal to 2, y equal to 3. Again, we can do this in the calculator, and we'll talk about how to do that with some of the larger matrices. So if we move on to this next example, we have a 3x3 system of equations, 3 variables. Again, our augmented matrix in this case is going to be 2, 1, 1, -3, -4, -6, and 1, -2, -4. We will augment that 33, 29, 39. And so now I'll show you how to do this in the calculator. Again, we're going to go to Matrix. We're going to go over to Edit. And now we have a 3 by 4. So we have 3 rows, 4 columns. So this is going to be a little bit different. 3 by 4. Again, we're going to go across the rows. 2, -3, 1, 33. And then the next row is 1, -4, -2, 29. And then the final row is 1, -6, -4, and 39. So we have our matrix entered. We're going to quit out of this. So this is going to be a little bit different now. We're going to go to Matrix. We're going to go over here to Math this time. And again, we talked about some different things you can use in here. We've got determinant, we've got transpose, although it's easier to do a transpose by hand than to put it in the calculator. But this is helpful when you have to do calculations. Dimensions, fill, identity, or random. If we scroll down to B here, RREF. So there's REF, which is row echelon form, and there's RREF, which is reduced row echelon form. You can use A here, the RREF, but it takes another step. So we usually just go to the reduced row echelon form. So we'll hit enter on that. We'll go back to matrix. We'll grab matrix A, which is what we were working with, and we will hit enter. And you see here we've got 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 1, 1, and then a bunch of zeros at the bottom. So let's talk about what that means. Let's write it down and we'll talk about what that means. So if we reduce this thing, again, we end up with 1, 0, 2 augmented with 9, 0, 1, 1, and then 0, 0, 0. Our augmented matrix is 9, -5, 0. And what this means is that we don't have an independent system. It means that two of these equations are essentially the same. So we can't solve for x, y, and z explicitly. What this tells us is that x plus 2z is equal to 9, and that y plus z is equal to -5. So what we have is what is known as a dependent system. Essentially, two of those equations are lining up so that we don't have an independent, a single solution. And again, what's kind of going on here is that you can see we have this row of zeros here, and that's keeping us from having our system of equations give us a single answer. Okay, so let's take a look at a few more examples here. We have this last example here, and what I want you to do is to pause the video. Again, you can use your calculator for this one. Go through and put this one into your calculator using the reduced row echelon form, and then enter your answer in the online system. And this will conclude the lessons for Chapter 1.